Wind combed the Salisbury Plain as Alex Mercer paced the outer rope, measuring the hush between stones. He logged humidity and barometric drop, and watched his breath drift pale. Alex Mercer said, "You were built to remember the sky." His handheld scanner sang in faint chirps, while dusk bled into blue hour. He mapped a shallow groove that refused to be random. He dusted chalk across the sarsen, and the line brightened like a buried vein. Alex Mercer said, "Not worship, not ornament, instruction." A rook flapped off a lintel, and the air felt older than the fence. The tablet returned a crescent of anomalies beyond the official ring. He sketched the arc and cross-checked ephemerides for first light. "No," Alex Mercer said, "if this holds at sunrise, the pattern is deliberate." The stones settled into silence, and the field seemed to lean closer. Back at the rental hatchback, Alex parsed the drone sweep, and the arc beyond the ring nagged like a half-heard note. He overlaid topography and old boundary lines until the dots refused to scatter. Alex Mercer said, "You are not a ghost circle, you are intention." The signal drifted with wind shear, yet the pattern held through noise like a heartbeat under static. He scribbled a time window, breathing through the ache in his shoulders. Alex Mercer said, "Precession, nodal tilt, or a seismic proxy." He muted a call he could not face and saved 2 versions. The map sharpened its teeth when he inverted contrast. Alex Mercer said, "Outside the fence is where the quiet begins." The pub smelled of malt and wet wool, and locals tracked mud in lines like contour marks. Maya Patel slid into the booth, glasses fogged, and studied his notes before speaking. Maya Patel said, "You keep pushing and this site will push back harder." Alex Mercer said, "Anomalies cluster outside the ring, and the groove tracks sunrise like a metronome." She tapped the map and circled a barrow that never makes brochures. Maya Patel said, "Careers, and where your arrows point." He felt the old tremor behind his ribs and kept his voice flat. Alex Mercer said, "If it warns, we have a duty." She sighed, but her fingers settled on first light. Maya Patel said, "Then prove it clean or walk away." Outside, the alley steamed where pub heat met cold rain, and a stranger lingered under a gutter drip with a leather satchel. Rowan Blackwell said, "Watch the heel at first light, and mind the shadow that moves before men." Alex Mercer said, "Names travel quicker than warnings." The parchment rubbing felt brittle and old enough to have opinions. Rowan Blackwell said, "Lines sing when the sky leans right." Alex watched the man recede into fog, boots soundless. He angled the paper to the street lamp, and the spiral winked back. Alex Mercer said, "This is a key, or a trick, or both." The rain hissed like tape hiss on a lost recording. Near midnight, clouds thinned and the plane breathed, and Alex laid the rubbing against his sketch like 2 halves of a bone. The groove traced through both and landed on a mark he had not drawn. Alex Mercer said, "Your secret is geometry dressed as myth." He paced the fence to sightline the heelstone, and marked a tripod slot with tape. A fox blinked from the verge and vanished into thistle. Alex Mercer said, "Sunrise will answer, and I will listen." He packed the kit in reverse order, leaving the chalk last. The stones were dark ships, anchored to dawn. Alex walked away and the wind carried nothing back. First light bled across the heelstone, and the cold rang like glass in Alex's ears as the transit clicked into level. He marked the groove and watched the sun edge a blade over chalk. Alex Mercer said, "Hold at 0, then count." The beam kissed the sarsen and slid to a notch he had chalked at midnight. Maya Patel said, "It's too neat to be noise." He timed the interval twice, and the numbers returned like obedient birds. Alex Mercer said, 6 minutes 20, repeating. Wind shook the tripod, and he steadied the leg with his boot. Maya Patel said, "If this is a clock, what does it count toward?" The shadow tightened over the groove, and something in the field held its breath. A white SUV rolled through the service gate, and the sight woke like a startled herd, and a woman stepped out with a folder and a measured smile. Dr. Evelyn Hart said, "You have exceeded your permit and my patience." Alex Mercer said, "We logged repeatable alignment." She scanned the tripod, the chalk, and the groove with a curator's disdain. Dr. Evelyn Hart said, "Shut this down, or you will bury what is left of Rose." Maya Patel said, "We are inside protocol barely." Hart's eyes held a polished grief that did not warm. Dr. Evelyn Hart said, "Intent is not immunity." Alex felt the old stubborn wire pull tight. Alex Mercer said, "Truth does not vanish because it offends a schedule." They met the archivist in a prefab office that smelled of dust and toner, and boxes lined the wall like obedient jurors. Connor Vale said, "You need context more than conflict." He unfurled a site, map stamped, restricted, and traced a route outside the ring. Alex Mercer said, "That boundary was moved in '97. Connor Vale said, "Which makes it honest to the original intent." Maya Patel said, "Or dishonest to the present." He smiled like a man who solved puzzles for applause. Connor Vale said, "Follow the old stakes, and you will confirm your timing." Alex weighed the bait and felt the hook anyway. The clock in the corner ticked as if it approved. They hiked a chalk path fringed with thistle, until a low barrow rose like a sleeping shoulder under the wind. Alex Mercer said, "Survey stakes should anchor here." The stake heads were fresh cuts, and the paint bled too bright. Maya Patel said, "Records show older timber, not plastic caps." He paced the circumference, and the numbers refused to close. Alex Mercer said, "The ring is oblong by design or by fraud." A skylark sketched a frantic loop overhead and dropped out of sight. Maya Patel said, "We are following a misprint shaped like a man." He knelt at a seam where turf met packed soil. Alex Mercer said, "Something sealed and recent is under this line." A spade cut through sod, and a swallowed cavity sighed, and a lintel fragment looked back with a spiral and twin nodes like paired eyes. Alex Mercer said, "Lunar nodes, clear as breath on glass." Maya Patel said, "And a code that wants a dawn to finish it." Tires ground gravel, and the wind went silent in respect. Security Officer Blake said, "Step away from the trench." Security Officer Reed said, hands visible and equipment down. Alex laid the fragment on a tarp and felt heat that was not heat. Alex Mercer said, "You wanted quiet, you paid for noise." The sky darkened as if someone thumbed down a dimmer, and the field smelled of storm and law. Alex and Maya slipped beyond the cordon under a star-thinned sky, breath puffing silver as chalk dust crunched under boots. Rowan's coordinates glowed on Alex's tablet like a thread in darkness. Alex Mercer said, "He knew we would be forced this way." Maya Patel said, "Or he wanted us exposed." The downs stretched pale and silent, except for the soft grind of the tripod on Alex's shoulder. The wind pressed at their coats as though ushering them toward the hollow. Alex Mercer said, "The anomalies lie beneath turf untouched in decades." A lantern beam found wood splinters and char at the ridge. Maya Patel said, "This place was sealed with more than earth." Alex steadied the lamp, pulse hard against his ribs. Beneath the turf lay a cache wrapped in rotted canvas, and Alex's hand shook as he unrolled brittle papers scorched at their edges. Alex Mercer said, "Rose handwriting." Maya Patel said, "She was here before the silence." Notes described alignments, warnings, and a final line blurred by ash. Alex Mercer said, "Pages torn out, intentionally." The fire scars formed shapes like burned constellations. Maya Patel said, "Why would they keep the fragments if they feared her work?" He pressed the ink to memory, every jagged loop. Alex Mercer said, "Because even damaged, they prove her presence." The wind whistled through the hollow as if echoing her breath. In a ledger smudged by rain, Eliza Dorn's family name surfaced with looping ink that matched centuries of entries. Alex Mercer said, "Custodianship inherited." Eliza Dorn said, "My father, he never told me why we guarded the stones." Her voice cracked as if the ink cut deeper than she could stand. Maya Patel said, "Maybe he thought silence was protection." Eliza trembled, fingers hovering over her surname as though touching fire. Alex Mercer said, "This line binds you to the design, whether you chose it or not." She whispered of nights when her father vanished to the plain with lantern and compass. The ledger trembled in her hands, drops of rain blurring names into shadows. Connor Vale returned under the guise of ally, smile sharp as a blade hidden in cloth. "Connor Vale," said, "I salvaged a frequency log you may want." Alex Mercer said, "You staged the map misprint." His silence was more damning than words. Maya Patel said, "You rerouted us to waste days." Connor's shrug looked rehearsed, his eyes scanning the ridge for unseen ears. Alex Mercer said, "Your hands are on the sabotage, not the stones." Connor Vale said, "You mistake caution for treachery." The radio at his belt crackled, as if mocking him. Maya Patel said, "Trust does not fray, it shatters." Alex's breath hardened with the cold truth pressing between them. Eliza stared at a glyph carved on the lintel fragment, her lips trembling. Eliza Dorn said, "This symbol, it was carved on my father's death notice." Alex Mercer said, "Then his life and the stones were never separate." Maya Patel said, "He died carrying a secret no one wanted spoken." Eliza clutched her coat as if holding him back from vanishing again. Eliza Dorn said, "If the same hand etched this stone and his farewell, then they bound him to silence." The spiral at its center seemed to turn under lantern light, like a clock refusing rest. Alex Mercer said, "Your family was not guardian, it was sacrifice." The Downs fell still, carrying grief like a shroud. Alex sat cross-legged with Eliza's ledger, tracing spirals that repeated across centuries like an echo, stamped into time. Alex Mercer said, "These are recurrence maps, not decorations." Maya Patel said, "They cycle with eclipses and earthquakes." He penciled dates beside the glyphs and the intervals locked like gears. Alex Mercer said, "Every spiral closes on a resonance, a clock wound by sky and ground." Eliza Dorn said, "Then our grief was engineered, written into stone long before us." The weight of centuries pressed, and the pattern threatened to swallow reason. Maya Patel said, "If this was design, then its purpose is a warning, not a shrine." Alex felt the truth turn like a blade in his ribs. Storm clouds dragged low as they pursued Connor across chalk ridges, his silhouette darting like a fox above the hollow. Alex Mercer said, "He's carrying more than lies." Maya Patel said, "If he escapes, the trail dies with him." Boots slashed through wet grass, each breath pulling sharp air into burning lungs. Connor Vale shouted, "You'll never hold proof, only fragments." A copper token slipped from his pocket, glinting briefly before sinking into mud. Alex Mercer said, "Even deceivers leave crumbs." Maya Patel said, "He dropped something he never meant to." Thunder cracked across the plain as Connor vanished into mist, leaving silence too heavy for coincidence. Back in the archive annex, the copper token fit a hidden slot in a drawer, lined with dust and forgotten papers. Maya Patel said, "It was designed to open, not adorn." The drawer slid with a sigh and revealed Hart's private brief, stamped confidential. Alex Mercer said, "A suppressed thesis." He skimmed diagrams of sound waves intersecting stone rings like ripples on water. Alex Mercer said, "Stonehenge as an early warning network." Maya Patel said, "Hart knew and buried it." The air tightened, as if the paper itself exhaled a truth too dangerous for open air. Eliza Dorn said, "My father died to guard a warning system, not a temple." The brief mapped sound, light and tremor converging at the hinge like an orchestra of stone. Alex Mercer said, "They built a machine, not a monument." Maya Patel said, "Then Hart's silence was to keep panic from blooming." Eliza Dorn said, "Or to keep power locked in chosen hands." Alex spread the diagrams across the tarp, lines of resonance like veins through chalk. Alex Mercer said, "If the stones still hum, then we stand on an instrument tuned to catastrophe." Wind rattled the tent poles, and rain hammered like a drumbeat confirming the claim. Maya Patel said, proof doesn't erase danger, it amplifies it. The storm cracked open the sky as Liam Cross stepped from the shadows of the ridge, eyes lit with ambition. Liam Cross said, you chase ghosts while I build futures. Alex Mercer said, you vanished when we needed you. Liam Cross said, because truth without control is chaos. He lifted a case, gleam of stolen artifact inside. Maya Patel said, that piece belongs with the system, not your ego. Liam Cross said, I'll publish before they erase it all. Eliza Dorn said, you'll doom us with noise before the world hears the song. Alex felt betrayal coil through old scars as thunder stitched the sky above them. Eliza's hands shook as she unrolled the last journal her father kept, ink blurred by tears and damp. Eliza Dorn said, he knew the standstill marked the cycle's edge. Alex Mercer said, he wasn't chasing ritual, he was following design. Maya Patel said, Hart's predecessor walked him here that night, and he never returned. The words felt like stone weights stacking on the table, each line tightening the room. Eliza whispered that her father's compass still pointed to the heelstone, even when he was buried in grief. Alex Mercer said, this was no accident, it was succession by sacrifice. The truth left the air heavy as iron, and silence cut deeper than speech. In Liam's lab, wires and resonance models thrummed as if the stones themselves had followed them indoors. Liam Cross said, the henge is an amplifier, tuned to low earth rumble. Alex Mercer said, you rebuilt it from fragments and theft. He traced sine waves rising to peaks before storms or tremors. Maya Patel said, it predicts upheaval before we feel it. Liam Cross said, and with me, it becomes more than prediction, it becomes control. His smile carved sharp lines under flickering fluorescence. And then Alex Mercer said, control rots truth. The machines hummed louder, as though eavesdropping, and the lab felt less like sanctuary and more like cage. Hart stood in the threshold, rain dripping from her coat, eyes steady as if burdened by centuries. Dr. Evelyn Hart said, you think I silence truth for pride. I silence it to protect what's fragile. Alex Mercer said, truth caged festers into poison. Maya Patel said, suppression breeds the very chaos you fear. Hart set the case on the bench, papers sealed with wax untouched. Dr. Evelyn Hart said, if you unleash this, they will carve the stones for profit. Her voice cracked, not in weakness but in weary certainty. Alex Mercer said, then the choice is not silence or chaos, it is how to hold truth with care. Lightning flared and made her face briefly raw with grief. Liam's hand darted, seizing a keystone artifact from the bench and tucking it into his coat with practiced speed. Liam Cross said, your caution binds, while my ambition frees. Alex Mercer said, you'll fracture the design without knowing what it anchors. Maya Patel said, stop him. If that piece leaves, the array collapses. Liam pushed past with force and vanished into storm, leaving only rattling hinges and echoing footsteps. Eliza Dorn said, he's turning warning into weapon. Alex Mercer said, he'll publish falsehood faster than truth can walk. The night answered with thunder, like a judge's gavel condemning them all. A final audio log from Rose crackled from the recovered recorder, her voice thin with fear and resolve. Rose Calder said, I traced the last alignment. The stones sing only when the cycle closes. But someone followed me. Alex Mercer said, she knew it wasn't accident, it was pursuit. Maya Patel said she feared a human threat, not cosmic chance. Eliza Dorn covered her face, tears catching in the hiss of static. Alex Mercer said, she saw the system whole, and she vanished before she could speak it aloud. The recorder clicked off, silence heavier than any storm. It was no longer theory, it was proof bound in her voice. The sky bruised with stormlight as Alex pinned Connor at the trench's lip, the copper token gleaming in his palm. Alex Mercer said, this token proves you salted the archives. Connor Vale said, I only played the role you needed. Maya Patel said, enough riddles. Your trail leads to Hart's door. Connor sneered, but sweat betrayed his calm mask. Alex Mercer said, "You wanted misdirection to buy time, not answers." The wind tugged at the tarp and scattered notes across wet turf like fleeing birds. Connor Vale said, "You think proof is truth. It's only leverage." The storm pressed lower, thunder rolling like a verdict. Maya seized control, her voice cutting sharper than the storm. Maya Patel said, "We cannot stall. We force Hart to field test now." Dr. Evelyn Hart said, "You'll destabilize centuries of silence." Alex Mercer said, "Better risk storm than decay." They dragged the tripod to the heel stone, rain streaming silver down their faces. The plane hummed beneath boots, the ground alive with resonance. Hart's jaw locked, her control fractured but intact. Dr. Evelyn Hart said, "If you break it, blood is on your hands." Maya Patel said, "If we don't, blood is already buried beneath it." Lightning split the sky as the array came alive. From mist, Rowan emerged, antique transit over his shoulder, eyes like embers against the storm. Rowan Blackwell said, "One window, one cycle, miss it and you'll wait a lifetime." Alex Mercer said, "The sky's already turning the lock." Maya Patel said, "Then we read the key before it slips." He planted the brass legs into mud, glass lens fogged but steady. The storm churned as if waiting for permission. Rowan Blackwell said, "Stone hum is harmony, disrupt it and it shatters you." Alex nodded, heart hammering in rhythm with thunder. For the first time he felt both fear and awe braid together, binding him to the plane. The array hummed as wind dropped to sudden silence, stones resonating with tones too deep for ears, but heavy in bone. Eliza Dorn whispered, "That symbol." Rose marked it in her notes. Alex Mercer said, "It triangulates the last sight line." Hart's eyes widened despite herself, as if centuries of denial cracked. Dr. Evelyn Hart said, "Rose found the final chord." Maya Patel said, "Then her disappearance was no accident." Eliza touched the carved sigil, her hand trembling as if it burned. Alex Mercer said, "Her work lives in the stones, and we are only catching up." The hum rose, sky bending inward like glass ready to shatter. On the ridge, Liam's distorted broadcast cut through static, his voice warped yet triumphant. Liam Cross said, "The world will hear the song before you cage it." Alex Mercer said, "He's drawing crowds into stormfire." Maya Patel said, "He'll twist proof into spectacle." Eliza Dorn said, "He's feeding danger to those who cannot bear its weight." Hart whispered, almost to herself, "Control is slipping beyond any of us." Thunder cracked and rain lashed sideways as beams of torchlight appeared in the distance, shapes moving toward the stones. Alex Mercer said, "Then the night becomes our crucible, and dawn decides who survives the truth." The storm cracked above Stonehenge, and the stones pulsed with a hum that vibrated through marrow. Alex Mercer said, "The cycle closes now." Maya Patel said, "Then we witness the machine awaken." Lightning arced, outlining every trilithon like ribs of a giant heart. Eliza Dorn whispered, "My father's death was written in this song." Hart's lips trembled as she confessed. Dr. Evelyn Hart said, "I tried to bury what could not be controlled." The low frequency deepened until the ground trembled. Alex Mercer said, "It's not worship, it's survival, encoded in stone." The plane itself seemed to breathe, storm and structure bound in a single heartbeat. As the resonance peaked, Alex timed the vibration against the storm's pressure drop and watched numbers align. Alex Mercer said, "The array warns before Earth convulses." Maya Patel said, "It's an ancient seismograph, tuned to sky and soil." Dr. Evelyn Hart said, "Centuries of guardianship were built on this truth." Eliza Dorn said, "And centuries of blood to keep it quiet." The stone's song rose into a perfect chord, a revelation wrapped in sound. Alex Mercer said, "They built this to save, not to mystify." The storm light flickered across faces, each lit by awe, fear, and the unbearable weight of truth. Through the roar, a faint cry echoed from beneath a collapsed culvert near the ditch. Alex Mercer said, "That's not the storm." They rushed and tore earth until Rose Calder emerged, mud-streaked but alive, her eyes hollow with weeks of silence. Rose Calder said, "I hid when they staged the fall. I thought death safer than discovery." Eliza Dorn said, "You carried the last cord." Alex Mercer said, "You endured because the truth demanded it." She clutched the fragment she had saved, hands raw and trembling. Maya Patel said, "Her survival is the final proof." Rain sheeted down as Rose sobbed into the storm, both broken and victorious. The storm raged as Hart dropped her mask, her voice no longer steel but raw honesty. Dr. Evelyn Hart said, "I feared the world would tear the stones apart for profit." Alex Mercer said, "Then help us release it measured, not silenced." Connor Vale lay restrained, his deception exposed, spitting defiance. Liam Cross broadcast sputtered, static revealing forged data. Maya Patel said, "Your lies collapse under their own noise." Liam Cross shouted, "You'll choke the truth with chains." Eliza Dorn said, "No, we'll share it with care, not ambition." Hart exhaled and nodded, finally surrendering the weight she carried. At dawn, the storm receded, and the stones glistened with rain like awakened giants. Alex report uploaded with safeguards, stripped of spectacle but rich in proof. Alex Mercer said, "The world will see a measured truth, not a weapon." Maya Patel said, "History becomes survival, not myth." Eliza Dorn touched the glyph and whispered a farewell to her father's silence. Dr. Evelyn Hart watched the horizon, her power relinquished but her burden shared. Rose Calder said, "I thought truth would break me, but it gave me back my voice." Alex stood apart, eyes hollow, knowing he had chosen truth over peace. The stones kept humming, indifferent yet eternal.